Charlie Kirk's the founder and CEO of Turning Point USA and the author of the new book, The College Scam. So, Charlie, do you accept the View's apology?
I mean, regardless of whether or not I accept it, the question is, do our students accept it? That's really what's at heart here. They went after our 5,000 students at our event there of high school and college kids. And look, I get attacked all the time. People say false things. I'm a public figure. But when you go after 16 and 17-year-olds that travel from across the country that then have to live for the rest of their life with a shadow over them because someone at ABC says that they might be linked to neo...
Sunny Hostin completely lost her composure on national television after Charlie Kirk delivered a humiliation so harsh that even the View's audience was left stunned, unsure whether to applaud or call for help. What began as a tense exchange quickly devolved into a disaster as Hostin's arguments collapsed faster than a bargain bin wine glass. Kirk didn't just win, he steamrolled the debate, leaving Hostin visibly shaken and frantically searching for a response. This wasn't a discussion, it was a full-blown televised takedown.
Disgusting, gross elitism and her complete out-of-touch nature with respect to the rest of the world. Sunny Hostin goes on The View and decides now would be a great time to dump all over the so-called uneducated.
What we did not have is white women who voted about 52%, right, for Donald Trump. Uneducated white women, is my understanding. You have Latino men, actually, voting more for him. And you have, and black men was not the story. We're not the story here because they voted almost 80% for the vice president.
Right. Just because you didn't go to college doesn't mean you're stupid, and it doesn't mean that you don't have wisdom. You can go to college and get a bunch of irrelevant facts about how men can allegedly give birth or whatever.
There are meltdowns, and then there are televised implosions so spectacularly raw they deserve their own documentary and a candlelight vigil. Sunny Hostin's recent on-air unraveling falls firmly into the latter category. It was a masterclass in elegant disaster, so gloriously unfiltered and unintentionally iconic. It belongs in the Smithsonian under when talk shows go off the rails.
Look, what did it take for us to get to the point of an apology? We had to threaten a lawsuit, Jesse. And by the way, we're still entertaining it. We're talking to some of the best lawyers out there that are experts in this. And as you know, these things can be very complicated. There's a lot of facts and circumstances around it. But we're not going to let this go because you should not be able to smear 5,000 high school and college kids and then just be able to walk away with it. And the reason they felt they needed to do that, Jesse, is because if they told their audience the truth, that when gas is the most expensive it's been, flights are super expensive, that 5,000 kids decided to spend a weekend in summer traveling across the country to go hear from conservative speakers, maybe the audience of The View would think twice about all of their ideas. That's why they felt so compelled to try to smear our wonderful summit.
To be fair, Sunny wasn't ambushed. There were no surprise guests, no heated shouting matches, no blindsiding confrontations, just the distant echo of Charlie Kirk's digital sledgehammer crashing through the airwaves like a wrecking ball soaked in Red Bull and turbocharged by the algorithm. The wild part? He didn't even need to be in the same time zone.
Privilege is a racist myth that is rooted in bigotry, trying to classify people based on their skin color. If you are a racist, you have something to apologize for. If you're a white person who is not a racist, you have nothing to apologize for. And anyone who makes you apologize just based on the color of their skin, they're the racist and you're not.
This is modern media strategy in full force. Charlie Kirk lobbed a prepackaged political grenade from the comfort of his own platform. A highly produced, overly polished, smug-gassin video aimed squarely at Sunny Hostin's entire worldview, like it owed him rent money. Facts? Optional. Subtlety? Absolutely not. Cue the dramatic infographics, slow-motion zooms, and righteous background music. Every box checked. This wasn't a critique, it was a full-on demolition. Kirk didn't just go for the jugular. He rewired the entire circulatory system and served it up with a side of smug fries. And the internet? Oh, it devoured every bite.
Points conference were in the front, turned out there in front of the conference with anti-Semitic slurs. And, I think it's important that every single person that attended that turning point, every Republican speak up against the swastikas, against the see flags that were waved.
You let them in.
President, open your
You
mouth.
let them in and you knew what they were.
Right.
So you are
The clip spread faster than a fake Kardashian pregnancy. Within hours, it was trending on Twitter, flooding timelines with headlines like Charlie Kirk ends daytime delusion and Sunny Hostin hit with a reality brick. Subreddits lit up. Comment sections erupted. Reaction channels circled like vultures at an all-you-can-eat outrage buffet. And just like that, The View, normally a fortress of polished liberal predictability, looked more like a cruise ship caught in a hurricane. The energy shifted. The rhythm faltered. Sunny Hostin, the poised pundit with a law degree and a reputation for grace under fire, started visibly short-circuiting. She wasn't yelling. She didn't flip a chair. This wasn't Real Housewives. It was something more brutal, the slow collapse of composure, the fidgeting, the tight, forced smiles, the visible strain of trying to maintain that carefully crafted gravitas. You could almost hear her internal monologue. Am I seriously getting ratioed on live TV? Meanwhile, Charlie Kirk, filming from whatever bunker of smug he calls a studio, was likely popping digital champagne. This wasn't about debate. It wasn't about facts or fairness. It was about dominance. And if public humiliation had a brand ambassador, that one clip was the campaign launch. Because here's the real kicker. Kirk didn't just go after her arguments. He went after the entire image she represents. Educated, composed, media savvy. The kind of voice meant to be unshakable.
The final point I'll say is this, is Sunny, you guys thought that abortion was going to be this like quasi-zealot religious issue. I'm pro-life, people in the audience aren't, that's fine. What I'm saying though, what gives me promise, and I think we can all agree on this, is that there are other issues that should animate and drive our politics other than this very divisive one. And I was really encouraged by that, Megan. Very encouraged, because the media was forcing this as an up or down vote on a referendum on a highly complicated, very emotional, very personal issue. And it turned out the American people were like, yeah, actually, these other 6 things matter more. And good.
And that's exactly why he did it. Classic Charlie Kirk playbook. Reduce public figures to Twitter handles, strip away the nuance, and roast them over the open flame of meme culture. He didn't need to be right, just louder, flashier, and a few steps ahead in the online war zone. And on that front, he absolutely was. While Sunny was still recovering from her weekend brunch takes, Kirk had already unleashed 6 viral edits, a swarm of fanboy reaction GIFs, and, naturally, a merch drop. Sunny's unraveling wasn't about losing a debate. It was about being flattened by a freight train of performative outrage. There she was, trying to steer a daytime talk show through what she thought was light drizzle, only to realize Kirk had dialed up a full-blown media hurricane. Now, The View's producers have handled their share of chaos, walk-offs, awkward interviews, hot topics turning into spontaneous therapy sessions. But this was different. There was no debate, no back and forth. It was a narrative siege, a cyber ambush. And the cameras, those unblinking, unforgiving truth-tellers, caught every moment, the subtle shift in posture, the eyes flicking toward the teleprompter like it might hold the answers. The voice, once crisp and commanding, starting to tremble like a Jenga tower down to its last block.
Welcome back. You know, in Monday's conversation about Turning Point USA, I put the young people at the conference in the same category as the protesters outside. And I don't like it when people make assumptions about me. And it's not any better when I make assumptions about other people, which I did. So, my bad. I'm sorry.
Okay.
So,
Online, the wolves were already howling. Reaction videos from Kirk's camp chopped up her discomfort into endless looped montages. Conservative blogs hailed it as a cultural victory. Even Gen Z TikTokers jumped in, remixing her facial expressions into viral dance memes with the ferocity of digital piranhas. Meanwhile, Charlie Kirk was glowing like a smug lighthouse on a foggy night. His followers crowned it the moment traditional media finally cracked under the pressure of new age commentary. And honestly, they weren't entirely wrong. What Kirk really gets, and what fuels his fire, is that in today's post-fact, content-driven political landscape, it's never been about logic. It's about optics. Who looks like they're in control? Who triggers the loudest emotional reactions? Who's got the catchiest soundtrack? And Sunny? Oh, Sunny didn't stand a chance. The moment that video hit the feed, the algorithms picked sides, and hers wasn't the winning one. This wasn't a battle of ideas. It was a meme war, and she brought a footnote to a flamethrower fight. Let's take a moment to admire the artistry. Kirk, master of smug insurgency, crafted a package so powerful it didn't need a response. It needed quarantine. This wasn't commentary. This was tactical media warfare wrapped in 1080p in sanctimony.
Nothing else to talk about. Maybe you should get the lawyer that worked on that Covington Catholic school case. What was that, a $200 million settlement? I think, Charlie, you could use the money. And your students definitely could, too.
And it hit Sunny's carefully crafted image like a drone strike. For years, she built a persona of intellectual clarity and moral confidence, but none of that mattered when the internet decided to make her this week's piñata. It wasn't even that her point of view was wrong. It was that the spectacle made her look unprepared, shaken, human. And these days, being human on TV is practically a career death sentence. Charlie Kirk didn't win because he was smarter. He won because he was spectacularly brutal. And the internet thrives on blood sport. You'd think daytime television would be safe, scripted, moderated, perfectly lit. But now, it's just another battlefield. Poor Sunny Hostin wandered onto it thinking she was hosting tea. No rebuttal, no defense, just a visible unraveling under the crushing weight of internet perception. One viral moment and her entire demeanor became a case study on the psychological toll of uninvited digital warfare. And let's be honest, it was cinematic. The arc had it all: an unexpected blow, a slow descent into visible distress, and the chilling realization that the cameras were still rolling. The saddest part, she tried. She really tried to hold it together.
Achievements. How do you like the so-called uneducated now, Sunny?
Yeah, and again, by the way, rarely do you get the answer to a question in the question. And her whole question is exactly why there was a rebellion against them.
Yes.
Listen, just because you didn't go to college doesn't mean you're stupid, and it doesn't mean that you don't have wisdom. I always differentiate between knowledge and wisdom. You can go to college and get a bunch of irrelevant facts about how men can allegedly give birth or whatever they teach. I mean, or about North African lesbian poetry. Okay, that's fine.
But when your public image gets turned into a punchline, there's no graceful way to survive that in real time. Meanwhile, Kirk's victory lap wasn't a casual stroll. It was a full-on TikTok marathon. Recap videos, Instagram reels, mugshots of smugness flooding the media. And no, the media did what it always does, picked a side based on clicks. Suddenly, everyone had an opinion about Hostin's facial expressions, her silence, even her size. Entire editorials were written dissecting a woman blinking too fast on camera. This wasn't journalism, it was spectacular cannibalism. Here's the kicker: Charlie Kirk never even showed up in person. He humiliated someone from a different building, maybe even a different zip code, through sheer online willpower. And just like that, the liberal media got a wake-up call louder than a Florida man trying to debate a hurricane. Sunny Hostin's meltdown wasn't just one woman's bad day. It was the sound of an entire media strategy collapsing under the weight of TikTok sarcasm, Twitter trolls, and Gen Z's Olympic-level eye-rolling. The problem? She came armed with Constitution and law school logic, while the other side brought a flamethrower, a library of memes, and an internet that feasted.
Now we begin with a shocking apology just a short time ago from the ladies of The View to Turning Point USA. A war of words broke out after the conservative group was rallying the next generation of voters at its youth summit in Tampa, Florida this weekend. And the liberal panel just couldn't help themselves. The group sent a scathing cease and desist letter after hosts on The View suggested that Turning Point had embraced neo-Nazis who showed up outside the...
For years, liberal media lived in the comforting myth that truth would prevail. The idea was simple: stack enough research, sprinkle in some legal analysis, and deliver it all in a calm voice with a Yale degree, and people would nod thoughtfully over chamomile tea and maybe even change their worldview. Spoiler alert, they won't. Not in 2025, Not when audiences scroll right past economic policy breakdowns for videos titled Liberal Melties Down after GT Tang Destroyed by Common SENSC. The rules of engagement have changed. Audiences don't want nuance. They want the political version of WWE. Body slams, trash talk, and folding chairs flying across the ideological ring. Debating used to be about who had the most coherent argument. Now it's about who can create the most viral moment. If your opponent turns you into a 10-second meme set to sad violin music, you've already lost, no matter how airtight your constitutional interpretation might be. Charlie Kirk didn't come armed with a dossier. He rolled in like a digital wrecking ball. And the worst part? He didn't even have to be there in person. He remotely detonated the segment like a guy showing up to a boxing match via drone strike. Meanwhile, Sunny Hostin was left sitting in the rubble of her own credibility, blinking like someone who just realized their carefully curated resume doesn't grant meme immunity.
The weekend, Turning Point USA hosted a riveting event in Tampa, Florida called the Student Action Summit. Outside of the event were individuals waving flags and engaged in other activities. Well, on Monday's show, members of The View made a few comments about it.
The conservative group Turning Point USA has condemned the group of neo and said they have nothing to do with the organization.
Yeah, but where was DeSantis? That's what I want to know.
But you let them in. You let them in and you knew what they were. So you are.
And here's the kicker. Liberal media still doesn't know how to fight back. They're stuck in the 2000s and 2010s, sipping lats, hoping reason will eventually win out. But this isn't a courtroom. It's a circus. And if you show up with facts and decorum while your opponent's juggling fire and yelling into a megaphone, guess who the crowd's watching? Hostin's image took a bigger hit than a politician's approval rating after a Mick leak. And not because she was wrong. Oh no, this wasn't about facts. It was about optics. She looked rattled. She looked cornered. In today's landscape, looking defeated is worse than actually being defeated. The internet doesn't run on justice. It runs on perception. And perception says she got steamrolled by a guy who probably rehearses his takedowns in front of a mirror next to his protein powder. The damage? Permanent, at least online. That broadcast clip has evolved into its own ecosystem. TikTok edits, YouTube breakdowns, Instagram reels loaded with exaggerated emojis, and reaction videos by influencers who think Karl Marx is a TikTok dance. It's been remixed more times than a Drake single. Hostin's poise shattered into 1,000 algorithm-friendly pieces, each one shared, stitched, and monetized by people who couldn't define due process if it served them papers.
Hey, we talked about the fact that there were openly neo-demonstrators outside the Florida Student Action Summit of the Turning Point USA group. We want to make clear that these demonstrators were gathered outside the event and that they were not invited or endorsed by Turning Point USA. A Turning Point USA spokesman said the group, quote, 100% condemns those ideologies, and said Turning Point USA security tried to remove the neo-Nazis from the area but could not because they were on public property. Also, Turning Point USA wanted us to clarify that this was a Turning Point USA summit and not a Republican Party event. So we apologize for anything we said that may have been unclear on.
Image is currency, and when a media figure flinches, the vultures don't just circle, they live stream it. Hostin might recover in the eyes of traditional audiences, sure, but in the digital gladiator arena, she'll need more than composure. She'll need an entirely new strategy, one that doesn't assume people are here for justice but accepts they're really here for blood, popcorn, and whatever goes viral before lunch. Sunny's breakdown wasn't loud. It wasn't angry. It wasn't performative. It was worse. It was real. And if you're not ready to be part of the circus, tough luck. The circus will find you anyway. So here lies Sunny Hostin's media reputation, slightly singed and deeply memed. A once untouchable voice now trapped in an endless loop of her blinking eyes, broadcast relentlessly by the very platform she underestimated. Charlie Kirk? He's already moved on to the next target, grinning from his digital throne. And Sunny? She'll probably recover, but the internet never forgets.